Welcome to PatternMagic Studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make our latest pattern, which is the crisscross top, which is perfect for summer and it's easy to make. Now let's start with our pattern. So as you can see here, we have 4 different patterns, which is for the back and for the lining. Now the first thing that I'm going to show you is the pattern for the fabric. As you can see here, now there's one front pattern and one back pattern. Now with this top, we're going to do a shoulder gather. As you can see, it's written on the pattern. And the other pattern is for the lining. It's the same, which is a front lining and the back lining. Now for this top, the best fabric you can use is a fabric that has a stretch or elastane on it. As you can see, we are using jersey fabric. You can use any fabric as long as it has elastane on it. So once we cut the fabric and the lining, always remember to cut the notches, as you can see here. And also, I'm going to show you because with fabric, there is a two side, basically the wrong side and the right side. The right side is always facing the front. So the way you can, if you want to remember how to do that, or if you have one color fabric, you can always get a tape and write down which side is the wrong side and which side is the right side.
Also center front, center back.
So now we're going to start stitching the panels together. So all the back panel, the front panel, we need to stitch from this point down to this point. And for the back, all the way. And for the lining, from the front, you can see there's a notch here in the middle. So you stitch it from that point to the end. And for the back, the whole thing. Okay. So now we're going to stitch the back panel as previously shown in the video, 1 centimeter. So now we're going to iron the seam open for all the panels. Okay, for the front, we open the seam, the one that we stitch. The next step is we're going to fold 3 centimeters, only the fabric, not the lining. Next, we're going to gather the shoulder together. As you can see on the pattern, you need to gather it to 6.4 centimeter. Yeah. For the shoulder part, when you want to gather, it's better to stitch it on a big stitches, so you can pull the thread later on.
So
the 6.4 centimeter on the shoulder gather, that's without the seam allowance. So you have to add 0.7 on each side. So for the next step, we're going to stitch the side together. So both fabric and lining, but we need to stitch the fabric and fabric together, the right side facing each other. Just the side at the moment for 1 centimeter. Once you stitch the fabric together and the lining together on the side, you need to iron the seams open for both sides. Next step is we're going to assemble the lining and the fabric together. The first thing first that you need to do is put the lining inside the fabric. So the lining has to be the wrong side on the top, and you put it inside the fabric, and the fabric has to be the right side has to be facing the top. And then this step is basically to stitch the armhole and the neckline together. So you just grab the armhole like shows on the video, and then you flip it inside out and you stitch the armhole at 0.7 for both armholes and also the neckline. Okay, so now we stitch the edges of the armhole 0.7 centimeter. At this time, you only stitch the armhole and the front panel and the back. You leave the shoulder at the end of the process. So for the front part, you need to make sure when you stitch at 0.7, you need to make sure that the notches or the seam allowance that you open before by ironing, you need to make sure that you close it to stitch the front. Because if you stitch it when it's open, it doesn't look as nice later on. So you make sure you stitch it when it's open, 0.7 all the way up. The next step that we can do now before we turn the fabric inside out, we need to make a small cuts on the curve where the armholes and the neckline. This is basically to make sure that when you flip the fabric on the right side, it will drape nicely. Now we're going to turn the fabric inside out. And then we're going to iron the fabric. Okay, so now you just iron the lining and the fabric together, the edges that you just stitch, to make sure that it's nice and flat. So now we're going to attach this shoulder panel to the back panel. So what we can do is we grab the front shoulder and then we grab the back part of the shoulder and then we flip it inside out. So as you can see here, the back part of the shoulder has to be on the inside of the front part. And then we just match the line together and then we stitch it at 1 centimeter. Okay, so we're going to stitch the shoulder part, which is that part, at 1 centimeter. Make sure that everything is catching. Okay, so now once we finish, we just need to flip it inside out again. And you can see here the result. It's very nice and clean. And you can see that I did the other side as well. Yeah. So to finish off the fabric, now the only thing we can left to do is basically to stitch the bottom side. So we grab the two seams together. Then we flip it inside out again to make sure that we match all the seams between the lining and the outer fabric together. And we stitch at 1 centimeter. When you want to stitch the bottom part, make sure you leave a bit of a gap so you can turn it inside out again. And then the next video will show you how to finish off the bottom part of the stitching. So you can start from one seam to the other seam all around it, leaving a bit of gap, and the stitching allowance is 1 centimeter. So now you can see that we left a bit of an opening, so we can flip it inside out again. And then we just need to hand stitch that opening to close the top. The other method that we can do to finish off the edges of the top is we can machine stitch. So where you left the opening, we can machine stitch it. So we can do top stitching at 1 millimeter. Once you finish stitching the opening, you can iron it flat. So we just need to iron the flat, the bottom part. For this crisscross top, we also make one prototype without using a lining. So if you decide not to use the lining, what you can do with the edges is you can use binding, or you can overlock the edges. If you choose to overlock the edges, you just need to overlock, fold it, and stitch exactly at the right stitch measurement. So now we have the final product of the summer crisscross top. Now, if you have any question about how to stitch or any problem with the pattern, please don't hesitate to email us or let us know. And please leave a review once, or give a photo of your final product. Thank you. Bye, and happy sewing.